Can I stand next to David?
No. No, I've got the perfect face for radio and the perfect voice for twittering.
Simon, explain where we are. We've just come from a hearing.
Today we were only applying for permission to appeal, which doesn't sound like very much, but we got permission. And what's really critical about that is that we can now go to the Court of Appeal and re-argue what my article really means. Our problem all along is that we think the original judgment on meaning was too extreme and unreasonable, and here's a chance now to get hopefully a better. As I say, at the moment we've only got permission to apply, but if we can argue that and if we can win a better meaning, then we're back in the game. And yeah, it's still a long way to go. The appeal hearing won't be for another 6 months. So
we're about half an hour after the hearing finished. But what was your? I think it took everyone by surprise, even people like me who aren't familiar with legal proceedings, when the judge actually talked about giving permission very early on, even if we had a chance to speak. So what was your reaction there?
So we've submitted a whole load of papers. In fact, the judge complained maybe too many papers. And there were 3 law lords, I think, looking at those papers. In fact, they asked for more papers. So they were clearly giving it serious consideration. Now, there was only one law lord present today, apparently summarising the view of all of his colleagues as well.
Right.
And I think because they'd already been persuaded by our paper arguments, they didn't need to hear from Adrienne, our barrister. And so right off the bat, they just said, right, we're going to give you permission to appeal. Then there was quite a lengthy explanation in his actual judgment, explaining why he thought our points were arguable. And I mean that in a positive way. They were worthy of arguing at the Court of Appeal. And that's it. We're just kind of cock a hoop, because almost every point we tried to argue for, he sort of said, yeah, we're talking about that. Let's see what the Court of Appeal says.
I mean, it's a small victory in a long sort of battle to try and go back to the original trial.
Yeah.
So this is purely a diversion from the original trial based on the meaning of the word sort of bogus.
Then whichever way we go, if we win the appeal or we lose the appeal, we then go back to the preliminary hearing.
Right.
Which won't take very long to resolve,
right.
Half a day, but that could be a year away. So and then once a preliminary hearing's resolved, we then go to trial. So it's still a long way to go. But up until now, I think they've been in a stronger position. I think they're still probably in a stronger position because we haven't had the appeal.
Oh, don't say that.
But the appeal kind of says everything's up for grabs. So
I mean, during the hearing, the judge made an interesting reference to the European Court of Human Rights. That reference to me was interesting because he said we need to balance.
He made a point that this was an article about a matter of public interest, and therefore there was an important need to balance freedom of speech with the libel laws, and so he mentioned the European Court of Human Rights there. I must admit, I was so blown over by the quick and very positive result, and luckily David Allen Green sort of tapped me on the shoulder and gave me a thumbs up just to make sure I wasn't dreaming, that I just kind of just allowed the words to flow over me and just kind of enjoyed how generally positive they were, while everybody else was busily writing them down. So we have an informal transcript of what was said somewhere. I haven't seen it yet, and it may be another day or two before we actually have the formal judgment released. But as positive as it could have been so far.
How do you feel now then? So you feel slightly better than you did a couple of hours ago?
Oh God, yes. I was just saying to a couple of people that I'm trying not to get too overjoyed because in the same way I tried not to get too depressed 6 months ago. And there's still hard work to be done. So we need to kind of just focus on that. And the whole campaign for libel reform, which kind of runs in parallel. And in fact, because the Court of Appeal is now, say, 6 months away, I can focus more on the campaign for libel reform, work with Sense About Science, and work with other groups that are interested in this issue. So lots still to do, but with kind of a spring in my step as opposed to being slightly crestfallen.
I mean, I know Richard Dawkins appeared at the Liberal Party
Yeah.
conference, but do you think come 6 months' time, when the next election will be, sort of probably just over 6 months' time, do you think there's really going to be that much interest mainstream in libel reform?
If people are prepared to kick up a fuss and say how outraged they are, it's not about my case, it's about libel as it's applied to all sorts of different cases.
And we must mention this is a day after we had that whole Twitter thing with Trafigura and Carter Ruck.
That's right, another freedom of speech issue.
Yeah.
If the public are outraged enough, in enough numbers, we've got 20,000 people signed up at the moment. We need to turn that. I was talking at TAM in London recently, the amazing meeting, and I was saying we need to get 100,000 people signed up. We need to get 1 million people signed up. And politicians have got a lot of stuff they want to do, and we just have to make sure that this goes higher up in their agenda. I don't think any of them would argue that we've got the best libel laws in the world. They all acknowledge there's something fundamentally wrong. So we need to, one, present them with how things can be improved, be a bit more positive about what we want as opposed to being a bit negative about what we're angry about.
And what are those positive things?
Oh, well, for example, a public interest defence, a clear public interest defence would make life much fairer for journalists. The sort of thing that you have in America, for example. So that's one point. I mean, the other point is the whole issue of cost. Another issue is a reverse burden of proof. Another issue is about how easy it is to bring a libel case. So the whole range of different problems, and each one on their own probably isn't catastrophic, but together they make our libel laws more extreme than pretty much anywhere else you can think of. I'm going to have a chat to a few people here.
No, I've taken up enough of your time. Thanks very much, Simon.
No, my pleasure. Cheers.